Unknown. Habib Tabangi. Time Travel, a Realistic and Informative Guide. Chapter 1. Introduction to the Concept and History of Time Travel. Time travel, moving through time to the past or future, has long been a subject of human fascination. Ancient myths and legends from various cultures tell of individuals who skip years or centuries in a blink, foreshadowing the concept of temporal displacement. In modern literature, the idea of a mechanical time machine was famously popularized by H. G. Wells in 1895 with The Time Machine, which introduced the public to the notion of using a device to travel through time. On the scientific front, Albert Einstein's theories of relativity in the early 20th century revealed that time is not absolute. Under certain conditions, such as traveling near the speed of light, time can pass at different rates for different observers. This phenomenon of time dilation, exemplified by the twin paradox thought experiment, established a real-world foundation for forward time travel into the future. Traveling into the past is far more problematic. While general relativity permits solutions like closed, time-like curves or traversable wormholes in theory, these ideas remain speculative and fraught with paradoxes. For decades, time travel lingered at the fringes of physics and the forefront of science fiction, a tantalizing impossibility. Despite the theoretical uncertainties, the allure of time travel has inspired generations of scientists, futurists, and innovators. Visionary researchers have explored concepts such as wormholes, cosmic strings, and quantum tunneling as potential mechanisms to traverse time. Over time, incremental advances in related fields, from high-energy physics to quantum computing, have slowly transformed the discussion of time travel from pure speculation to tentative experimentation. What was once exclusively fiction and theory is now being pursued in earnest. We stand at the dawn of a new era where the first rudimentary time machines are on the horizon of possibility. In this book, we will explore the development of time travel technology, the motivations driving its pursuit, and the profound implications of opening humanity's newest frontier, the temporal frontier. We begin with the aspirations that lead people to dream of venturing into other times before delving into the scientific, commercial, legal, and ethical dimensions of making those dreams a reality. Chapter 2. Aspirational motivations for time travel. The motivations for undertaking a journey through time are vast and varied. They range from the academic pursuit of knowledge to deeply personal quests for meaning and adventure. This chapter explores several primary categories of goals that compel individuals to step into a time machine. These aspirational motivations include the desire to witness and document history, to drive scientific discovery, to seek personal enrichment, to carry out ethical or humanitarian interventions, and to embark on bold adventures. Each of these motivations reflects a different facet of why time travel captivates the human imagination. Historical observation and documentation. One profound application of time travel is the ability to witness history firsthand, to see past events and cultures with one's own eyes, gaining insights no textbook could ever provide. Historians and the historically curious dream of using time travel as the ultimate research tool. For example, a time traveler might stand among the workers building the Great Pyramids of Giza to observe the techniques and labor involved, or live in Augustan Rome during the Pax Romana to experience the Roman Empire at its height. One could attend pivotal moments such as the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215, the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863, or the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, bearing witness to events that shaped the course of civilizations. Beyond grand events, there is also appeal in cultural immersion, attending a play at Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, joining the court of Queen Elizabeth I, or walking the Silk Road at its peak to see the exchange of goods and ideas. By traveling to the past, historians and enthusiasts hope to document lost languages, verify historical accounts, and enrich our understanding of human heritage in a way no amount of archival research can match. Time travel in this sense is seen as the ultimate form of historical observation, allowing for direct documentation and even the preservation of knowledge from eras long gone. Scientific discovery and exploration. For the scientific community, time travel offers an unprecedented opportunity for discovery, essentially a time-bridging form of field research. Scientists could directly investigate phenomena that are otherwise inaccessible due to time. In paleontology and biology, researchers dream of observing the Earth's distant past, collecting samples of extinct flora and fauna, studying living dinosaurs in their natural habitat, or witnessing the rapid diversification of life during the Cambrian explosion. In geology and planetary science, a time traveler might watch the theorized giant impact that formed the moon, or see the young Earth assembling its first continents. Paleoclimatologists could gather climate data across epochs, ice ages, tropical greenhouse periods, to understand long-term climate change in unprecedented detail. Anthropologists and evolutionary biologists, on the other hand, could observe early hominids, watching Australopithecus or Homo erectus in their own time, witnessing the first use of fire by humans, or tracing the migration of early humans out of Africa. Even physicists and astronomers have something to gain. One ambition is to witness cosmic events like a supernova, for instance, the explosion that created the Crab Nebula, from a safe distance, to collect data on phenomena that occur on timescales far beyond a human lifetime. In all these cases, time travel is viewed as the ultimate scientific expedition, allowing experts to verify theories, fill gaps in the fossil record, and observe processes directly rather than only inferring them from indirect evidence. Personal enrichment and experience. Not all motivations are academic. Many are deeply personal. Time travel promises experiences that can enrich an individual's life in unique ways. Some travelers might seek to learn directly from the great minds of the past. Imagine studying art under Leonardo da Vinci's tutelage, learning music from Mozart, or debating philosophy with Plato in ancient Athens. Others are drawn to the idea of experiencing daily life in another era, spending a day as a common citizen in medieval Europe or a peasant in ancient China to better understand the routines, challenges, and joys of people in that time. Time travel can also offer the chance to witness natural and cultural wonders in their prime. For example, one could observe the geological forces forming the Grand Canyon or watch the construction of a marvel like the Great Wall of China. Lovers of music and art might attend legendary performances, the premiere of a Beethoven symphony, a Shakespearean play at the original Globe Theatre, or even a famous rock concert, experiencing them as they actually happened. Time travel also opens the door to visiting the future. A person might travel ahead to see the technological advancements of a future era, visit a future version of their hometown to see how it has changed, or experience zero gravity in a futuristic space habitat. Such deeply personal journeys can provide perspective, inspiration, and a sense of connection across the ages. For many, the value of time travel lies in enrichment and empathy, gaining wisdom from the past and insight into the future, thereby enriching one's understanding of humanity and oneself. Ethical intervention and altruism. Some time travel aspirations are motivated by ethical or altruistic goals. The desire to use the power of time travel to improve lives or avert disasters. These motivations are noble but extraordinarily complex. A traveler with this intent might wish to prevent a historical tragedy or reduce suffering, for example by delivering modern medical knowledge to a past era during the outbreak of a plague. Others might dream of saving cultural treasures, such as rescuing a lost work of art or literature before it is destroyed. More ambitiously, one could attempt to warn a historical figure of impending danger, for instance, alerting authorities about a looming assassination or disaster in hopes of preventing it. There are also visions of introducing positive knowledge earlier than it originally emerged, teaching sustainable agricultural techniques to a civilization suffering from famine, or sharing principles of human rights with a society long before such concepts took hold. These humanitarian goals reveal the optimistic side of time travel, the hope that it could be used as a tool to make things better. However, such interventions come with profound ethical dilemmas, explored in detail in Chapter 7. Any change to the past, even well-intentioned, carries the risk of unintended consequences or paradoxes that could alter the fabric of history in unpredictable ways. Thus, while the aspiration to right the wrongs of the past is strong, a time traveler must weigh the moral imperative to help others against the potential harm that changing history might entail. The mere existence of this motivation highlights why comprehensive ethical guidelines and restraint are so important once time travel becomes possible. Adventure and exploration. Finally, there are those who are driven simply by the spirit of adventure, the timeless human urge to explore the unknown. Time travel offers what might be the greatest adventure of all, the chance to explore not just distant places, but distant times. Intrepid explorers with a time machine can go on expeditions that no modern traveler could otherwise undertake. For example, one could join historic journeys like sailing with Columbus across the Atlantic, joining Marco Polo on the Silk Road to the court of Kublai Khan, or venturing with Ernest Shackleton on his Antarctic expedition. Time travel can also uncover lost worlds and civilizations. A traveler might seek out the fabled city of Atlantis, if it ever existed, or walk through the great library of Alexandria before its destruction to recover lost knowledge. Adventurers might visit the frontiers of the earth and beyond, trekking through the Amazon rainforest before modern encroachment to document its pristine biodiversity, or even traveling into the far future to be the first human to set foot on an exoplanet orbiting a distant star. The adventurous motivation often isn't about changing history or gathering data, but about the experience itself, the thrill of seeing and doing things that no one else in the present era ever has. Whether it's witnessing the construction of the Great Wall of China, exploring a medieval castle in its heyday, or observing the formation of a new star in the distant future, time travel represents the ultimate journey for explorers and thrill seekers. These adventurers view themselves as temporal tourists and pioneers, driven by curiosity and courage to chart the unmapped timelines of human experience. Each of these aspirations, historical, scientific, personal, altruistic, and adventurous, underscores a different kind of promise that time travel holds. They also foreshadow many of the challenges to come. Fulfilling these dreams requires technology that does not yet exist. It raises questions about safety and ethics, and it demands new industries and regulations to support such journeys. In the following chapters, we turn our attention to how a time machine could actually be built, the business that could arise around it, and the safeguards needed to ensure these temporal voyages are conducted responsibly. Chapter 3. The Science and Engineering of Time Machines. Turning time travel from a fanciful idea into a working technology is one of the greatest scientific and engineering undertakings in history. This chapter explores how a time travel device might be conceived, developed, and tested in practice. The journey from theory to reality involves a multi-stage process, laying a strong theoretical foundation, conducting rigorous research and development, and building and refining prototypes through iterative testing. We will examine each of these stages to understand the science and engineering behind building a time machine, from initial concept to the threshold of a commercial-ready product. Conceptual foundation and theoretical models. Every groundbreaking invention begins with a concept. In the case of a time machine, the conceptual foundation must reconcile bold imagination with hard science. The first step is ideation. Innovators brainstorm diverse time travel use cases and scenarios to define what exactly the time machine should be able to do and what its unique value will be. For example, is the goal to enable tourism to the past, fast-forwarding to see the future, or facilitating scientific experiments? Answering these questions helps outline the machine's requirements and unique selling points. Early in the concept phase, market research might even be done to gauge interest from different groups, research institutions, adventure travelers, etc., and refine the product vision accordingly. With a vision in hand, the next priority is assembling the right expertise. Time travel is a multidisciplinary challenge, so founders will establish an expert advisory board of leading physicists, engineers, historians, ethicists, and other specialists. This board's role is to validate the scientific plausibility of the concept, ensuring it doesn't violate known physical laws and to guide its responsible development. Having ethicists involved from the start is crucial because of the moral implications of time manipulation. Alongside this, a high-level design blueprint is drafted, sketching out the core mechanics of how the machine might operate and what safety features it must include. At the conceptual stage, acknowledging potential problems is important. Developers will identify possible paradoxes and timeline risks in theory and propose initial safeguards to avoid them. For instance, they might imagine a paradox avoidance protocol as a built-in system or rule set that prevents users from making dangerous changes to the past. Planning is also a key part of the concept phase. The team will outline a development roadmap from concept to launch, defining major milestones such as creating a working prototype, conducting testing phases, and obtaining any necessary regulatory approvals. This roadmap serves as a strategic plan to turn the theory into a real working time machine on a realistic timeline. Finally, the conceptual foundation is strengthened by studying analogous frontier industries for lessons learned. The pioneers of time travel look at fields like commercial spaceflight, quantum computing, or artificial intelligence, areas where cutting-edge technology had to overcome public skepticism and regulatory hurdles to inform their own approach to introducing a radical new technology to society. By the end of the conceptual stage, the time travel project has a clear vision, expert guidance, a preliminary design, awareness of risks, and a structured plan for moving forward. Research and development. With the concept defined, the effort moves into intensive research and development (R&D), where theoretical physics meets practical engineering. This phase is likely to be long, expensive, and technically challenging. It begins with building a world-class R&D team. The company must recruit top talent, physicists with expertise in general relativity and quantum mechanics, engineers skilled in high-energy systems and precision instrumentation, and emerging specialists like chrononautical scientists or temporal theorists. A dedicated laboratory is established where this team can focus on exploring the physics of time travel without distractions. Early R&D involves investigating multiple theoretical approaches to time manipulation. Researchers might explore concepts such as wormholes, quantum tunneling, and cosmic strings, all speculative mechanisms that have been proposed as possible conduits through time. These approaches are modeled mathematically and simulated on advanced computers to evaluate their viability and requirements. For instance, if studying wormholes, the team will calculate what kind of negative energy or exotic matter might be needed to keep a wormhole open. Parallel approaches are pursued until a promising method, or combination of methods, emerges as the front runner for implementation. As understanding deepens, the R&D team works on the core components that any time machine will require. One major milestone is developing a robust mathematical model or software simulation of the temporal jump process, essentially a theoretical framework that predicts how traveling from one point in time to another would work and what variables affect the journey. Alongside the theory, engineers must prototype a high-energy power source or reactor capable of producing the immense energy likely needed for temporal displacement. Time travel, according to most theories, would require astronomical amounts of energy, for example, to warp space-time or create a traversable wormhole, so this power source is a critical piece of hardware. Additionally, the R&D phase addresses human factors, designing a user interface and navigation system that would allow a person to input a target date and location accurately while preventing errors. Navigating time is exponentially more complex than navigating space. Precision is paramount. A time machine that lands even a few years or miles off target could be ineffective or dangerous, so this navigation system must be extremely reliable. Safety research is another pillar of R&D. The team anticipates various hazards unique to time travel and works on countermeasures. For example, traveling through time might expose users to intense radiation or other unknown forces. Thus, shielding mechanisms and perhaps inertia dampeners are designed to protect the traveler during the jump. Recognizing the possibility of paradoxical effects, an early prototype of a paradox detection algorithm is developed. This would be a software system that simulates potential timeline outcomes of certain actions and can warn or even intervene if a user's intended actions might cause dangerous paradoxes. Essentially, the machine might be equipped with an AI guardian that, for instance, flags if an intended action would prevent the traveler's own past from occurring, a la the grandfather paradox. Each of these R&D components, theoretical modeling, energy generation, navigation, and safety systems, results in prototypes and intellectual property. All discoveries are carefully documented and patents are sought for novel inventions, e.g., a new type of temporal field stabilizer. This not only protects the company's innovations, but also marks its technological leadership in what will surely become a competitive field. By the end of R&D, the goal is to have solved the fundamental science problems and demonstrated, at least in simulations or small-scale experiments, that time travel is possible in a controlled way. Prototyping and testing. After extensive R&D, attention shifts to building a working prototype time machine and putting it through rigorous testing. This phase is where theory is finally put into practice and it proceeds step by cautious step. The first prototype is likely a crude but functional version of the time machine, constructed with core systems in place for controlled, limited testing. Testing begins in a secure and isolated environment, perhaps an underground facility or remote laboratory, to contain any unforeseen effects. The initial tests avoid human subjects. Engineers send non-living or biological proxies through time to observe the effects. For example, they might send a sensor-laden drone, a clock, or even plant or animal life a short duration into the future or past. These experiments verified that the machine actually causes temporal displacement and, importantly, that objects can survive the trip intact. The sensors on these test payloads feed back data. Did time actually elapse differently for the object? Were there dangerous radiation spikes or physical stresses during transition? Each unmanned test provides data to refine the machine's operation. With some confidence that the machine works on a basic level, the team proceeds to calibrate and refine its performance. One major objective is to ensure precise temporal and spatial targeting. The machine must be tuned so that if the operator sets it for, say, July 4th, 1776 in Philadelphia, it indeed arrives on that date and location and not, say, a week early in Boston. This involves calibrating the machine's timing mechanisms, perhaps using feedback from multiple trial runs. Alongside targeting precision, multiple fail-safe mechanisms are implemented and tested. For instance, an emergency return function could be built in, a sort of home button that automatically pulls the time traveler back to the present if something goes wrong. Another fail-safe might be an automatic shutdown or temporal braking system that engages if the machine detects anomalies, preventing it from going to a dangerous time or place. Each of these safety features is tested under controlled conditions. The team might deliberately simulate a fault to see if the emergency return triggers correctly. Testing is an iterative process. After each round of trials, engineers identify issues and improve the prototype. If the targeting was off by a small margin, they adjust the calculations and test again. If instrumentation shows an unexpected energy surge at a particular phase of the jump, they modify the shielding or power modulation and run another test. Over multiple cycles, the prototype evolves to be more stable, accurate, and safe. They also conduct stress tests, pushing the machine's limits by attempting jumps of longer duration to more distant eras, or operating the machine continuously to see how it holds up. Different scenarios are tried, e.g., sending the drone to the year 2010 and then to 1000 BCE, or keeping an object in a past time for several days before returning, to ensure the system works across the intended range of operation. The ultimate goal of the prototype phase is a successful manned time travel test. Only after exhaustive unmanned testing and safety validation would a human be allowed to travel. When that moment comes, a trained company pilot or volunteer steps into the machine, perhaps first for a very short trip, say a few hours into the future. This mission, carefully monitored, is the culmination of years of work. If the traveler returns safely and in good health and reports that the experience went as expected, it is a landmark proof that the time machine is viable. Following this, longer or more ambitious manned tests can be conducted, for example, sending someone a week into the past. Each manned test is accompanied by comprehensive test reports documenting every aspect of the journey and any anomalies. All these lessons are folded back into the design process to inform the next version of the machine. By the end of prototyping and testing, the company would have a working, tested design for a time machine. The device would have demonstrated the core functionality, sending and returning subjects across time, and proven its safety measures under trial conditions. This sets the stage for moving from a prototype to a commercial product, scaling up production and bringing time machines to market, which carries its own host of challenges discussed in the next chapter. Chapter 4: Business and Commercial Development. The advent of time travel does more than open new realms of science. It also spurs the creation of an entirely new industry. Building and selling time machines and providing time travel services requires innovation not only in physics but in business strategy. This chapter examines the commercial side of time travel, the formation of a company to develop the technology, the securing of funding, the manufacturing of these complex devices, and the marketing and sales strategies to bring them to customers. The journey from a successful prototype to a thriving time travel enterprise involves careful planning, significant capital, and creative approaches to unprecedented business problems. We will explore how a time travel company might structure itself, raise money, scale up production, and convince customers to take the leap into the temporal market. Company formation and strategy. Launching a time travel venture begins with solid business foundations. Entrepreneurs in this space must be as forward-thinking in business as they are in technology. Early on, the founders will conduct extensive market research to understand who might actually buy or use a time machine and what their needs are. Potential customer segments could include research institutions, e.g., universities or government labs wanting to use time travel for data collection, wealthy adventurers seeking a unique experience, defense agencies, or even organizations interested in historical tourism. By gauging demand and concerns from these groups, the company can refine its product concept, for example, deciding whether to prioritize safety and reliability for institutional buyers or user-friendliness for private adventurers. The company must also articulate a clear value proposition. Why would someone want to travel in time, and why with this company's machine? Perhaps the pitch is the Saki's safe, controlled exploration of time for education or strategic gain. By defining the value proposition, the company differentiates itself from any competitors or from the idea of doing nothing at all. For instance, they might position time travel as the next luxury experience beyond space tourism or as a revolutionary research service that can solve historical mysteries. This strategic positioning will guide everything from engineering priorities to marketing messages. Learning from history is not just for time travelers. The company itself will study analogies in other industries. The founders research analogous frontier industries like commercial spaceflight, deep-sea exploration, or even early aviation for lessons on market entry and public acceptance. Such industries teach how to handle public skepticism, high costs, and regulatory scrutiny. For example, early space tourism companies had to assure the public of safety and get buy-in from regulators. A time travel company faces similar challenges and can plan accordingly. On the operational side, the company lays out a detailed plan. This includes a development roadmap, as mentioned in Chapter 3, that aligns technical milestones with business goals. Key phases like prototype completion, first time travel demonstration, and commercial product launch are tied to funding rounds and marketing pushes. The company also establishes the necessary legal entity, securing any needed business licenses, with the complication that these might be needed in multiple countries, a precursor to the even more exotic legal issues covered in Chapter 6. Internally, a governance structure is put in place, possibly including the earlier mentioned advisory board to continue guiding decisions. In summary, the formation of a time travel company requires strategic vision, market awareness, and careful planning to complement its technical daring. With these elements in place, the venture can attract the resources it needs to move forward. Funding and finance. The financial aspect of developing a time machine is pivotal. Time travel R&D is enormously expensive and risky. In the beginning, the company will seek initial seed funding from visionary investors who are intrigued by the high-risk, high-reward nature of the project. These might be tech incubators, futurist billionaires, or funds that specialize in emerging technologies. The pitch to seed investors emphasizes the transformative potential of time travel, e.g., a trillion-dollar industry waiting to be born, but also outlines a credible plan and early progress, such as theoretical breakthroughs or a strong team. To support the pitch, the founders prepare a compelling business plan and pitch deck that highlights the market potential, who will pay for time travel and how much, the technical roadmap, and how risks, technical, financial, ethical, are being mitigated. Given the outlandish-sounding nature of time travel, credibility is key. The involvement of respected scientists and any early proof-of-concept results can help convince investors that this is more than science fiction. Besides private investors, the company will pursue non-dilutive funding opportunities like government grants or research contracts. Advanced physics projects often attract interest and funding from government agencies or the military, which see strategic advantage in cutting-edge technology. For instance, a defense agency might fund part of the research in exchange for first rights to any defense applications of time travel. Such grants not only provide capital but also confer legitimacy. As milestones are met, say the first successful temporal experiment, the company will raise larger rounds of financing. A significant Series A investment would typically follow a publicized prototype demonstration. At that point, with tangible progress to show, more traditional venture capital firms might come on board. The Series A funds are used to scale the team, hiring more engineers, test operators, safety experts, expand R&D facilities, and start work on manufacturing processes. Subsequent rounds, Series B, Series C, etc., would be aimed at scaling production and global expansion once the product is near market ready. The company also explores creative financing methods. One possibility, once the technology looks viable, is a crowdfunding or pre-order campaign. This could involve taking deposits from future customers or selling time travel experience vouchers that can be redeemed when the service launches. Not only would this provide cash, but it also gauges consumer interest and builds a community of early enthusiasts. However, regulatory and practical issues, taking money for a product as uncertain as a time machine, mean this step would be approached carefully. Long-term financial planning is part of the strategy from the start. Investors will want to see a path to profitability. The company outlines future revenue streams such as selling time machines, likely at very high prices initially, offering time travel journeys as a service, similar to how private jet companies operate flights, or licensing the underlying technology for specific uses. For instance, licensing a temporal communication patent to a telecom company. By mapping out these potential revenues, the company assures stakeholders that time travel can be a sustainable business, not just a one-off novelty. In summary, funding a time travel venture requires assembling a mix of bold investors, strategic partners, and imaginative financial models to sustain the long road from concept to commercial reality. Manufacturing and production. Developing one time machine in a lab is one thing. Manufacturing time machines at scale for customers is an entirely new challenge. Once the prototype is validated, the company must create a production capability for what is arguably the most complex device ever built. This begins with designing a scalable manufacturing process, breaking down the time machine's construction into reproducible steps and subcomponents. The machine likely contains exotic materials and extremely precise components, perhaps high-density quantum batteries or finely tuned space-time field generators. The company will standardize assembly procedures and quality checks for each part. A major concern is sourcing critical materials. The company secures a reliable supply chain for rare and exotic materials needed for time travel. For example, if the design requires a superconducting material only produced in small quantities, the company might invest in a supplier or stockpile the material. In some scenarios, entirely new materials like hypothetical exotic matter with negative energy might be needed, which could require in-house production or partnerships with cutting-edge physics labs. Supply chain resilience is crucial. Even a small component's unavailability could halt production, so backup suppliers and long-term contracts are put in place. The company establishes a specialized production facility for time machines. Unlike a typical factory, this facility must accommodate extreme requirements. Sections of it might need heavy radiation shielding if the time machines produce hazardous emissions during assembly or testing, and perhaps quantum containment fields for handling unstable particles. The layout might include cleanroom environments for assembling delicate quantum components, high-power testing bays to run each machine through a trial jump, perhaps a micro jump in time, before delivery, and secure storage for completed machines. Recruiting and training the manufacturing workforce is another hurdle. The technicians building time machines need highly specialized skills, akin to rocket scientists, particle accelerator technicians, and watchmakers combined. The company might create training programs or partner with universities to develop the necessary talent pipeline. Quality control personnel are also key, as each machine must be thoroughly inspected and calibrated. Implementing rigorous quality control, QC, is non-negotiable. Each time machine leaving the factory will undergo a battery of tests to ensure it meets safety and performance standards. This likely includes simulated time jumps in a controlled setting, extensive diagnostics of its power systems and navigation accuracy, and verification of all safety interlocks, like the emergency return function. The company may certify each unit as timeline compliant, meaning it has been tested not to cause unintended temporal effects in normal operation. Given the stakes, external auditors or regulatory inspectors might be involved in QC as well, part of the legal framework to be discussed in Chapter 6. The initial production run will be small. The company might aim to produce just a handful of commercial-grade time machines for beta customers at first. These early units could be earmarked for trusted partners or institutions like a renowned university or a national laboratory who agree to use them under controlled conditions. Feedback from these users will inform final tweaks to the design and manufacturing process. Over time, production can ramp up if demand grows and as processes become more efficient. The company also plans for contingencies in production, maintaining an inventory of critical spare parts, having backup manufacturing capacity, and continually integrating R&D improvements into the production models. For example, if the R&D team discovers a safer shield material, the factory can incorporate that change quickly into all new units. In essence, manufacturing time machines is a marriage of advanced engineering and extreme quality assurance. The process must be as cutting edge as the product, and it will likely set new standards for precision and safety in manufacturing. As production scales up, the company transitions from a pure R&D outfit to an operational manufacturer, which brings new challenges but also solidifies time travel as a tangible industry. Marketing and sales of a revolutionary technology. Selling a time machine presents marketing and sales challenges unlike any other product. The company must convince potential customers that time travel is not only possible, but also safe, legal, and worth the enormous price. The marketing strategy, therefore, blends visionary excitement with careful reassurance. On the one hand, advertising will emphasize the unique experience and once-in-a-lifetime opportunities that time travel offers. Imagine slogans like "Witness history firsthand" or "Journey beyond the present." On the other hand, every promotional message must also build trust, highlighting the rigorous safety measures and responsible protocols in place so that customers and the public are confident this isn't a reckless venture. The company will identify key customer segments and tailor its marketing accordingly. For example, outreach to government agencies or research institutions will focus on the scientific capabilities of the machine, data collection, solving historical mysteries, whereas marketing to high net worth individuals might focus on the exclusivity and thrill, the ultimate adventure travel. For luxury clients, the marketing might liken time travel to private spaceflight or deep-sea submersible dives, a rare experience for those bold enough to try. For academics, the messaging might be about expanding human knowledge and becoming a pioneer of the fourth dimension. One effective strategy will be demonstration and storytelling. The company could conduct high-profile demonstration events where a time machine is shown in action under controlled conditions. For instance, a media event might be held where a small object is sent 1 hour into the future and then brought back, or perhaps a live feed is shown of a time traveler visiting a well-known past event with strict non-interference. Such demonstrations, if successful, would generate enormous publicity and help shift public perception from skepticism to amazement. Marketing content will also include storytelling scenarios, vivid narratives of hypothetical journeys like, what if you could go back and watch the first moon landing from a different angle? These spark the imagination of potential customers. Engagement with the science and sci-fi enthusiast community is also part of marketing. The company might hold Q&A sessions with its physicists, release documentary-style videos explaining how the time machine works in layman's terms, or even sponsor contests or challenges, e.g., a competition to write the best essay on where would you go and why. By turning science fiction fans and early adopters into advocates, the company gains a grassroots marketing force. When launch time nears, a high-profile product launch event is planned. This could resemble a tech expo or even a futuristic fair featuring a live time travel demonstration. The company might have respected public figures, renowned scientists, futurists, perhaps even a celebrity known for interest in science, endorse the technology and speak at the event. The goal is to generate buzz and also signal credibility. If people see someone like a Nobel Prize-winning physicist or a well-known astronaut praising the machine, they're more likely to take it seriously. On the sales side, because of the complexity and cost of time machines, a personalized, consultative sales approach is needed. The company will likely launch an early adopter program to enlist flagship clients. For instance, securing a partnership or sale with a major research university or a national museum as one of the first customers would be a huge PR win, e.g., Harvard University to receive the world's first time machine. These early clients provide case studies and success stories the sales team can use for others. Direct sales efforts will target high-impact sectors like government, large academic consortia, and luxury tourism firms, with dedicated account managers nurturing each lead. To convert interest into commitment, the company might offer limited pre-order packages or founding customer perks. For example, the first 10 buyers might get lifetime maintenance service or exclusive training sessions with the inventors. Such perks create a sense of exclusivity and reward those willing to commit early. However, the company will also enforce a stringent client vetting process. Not everyone with money who wants a time machine will be allowed to buy one. The company has a vested interest in only selling to responsible parties who will adhere to safety and ethical guidelines, both to avoid disasters and to protect the company's reputation. This might involve background checks, an application process outlining the intended use of the machine, and requiring buyers to agree to oversight or usage restrictions. Furthermore, training and certification will be mandatory for any customer or operator. Just as you cannot fly a plane without a license, no one will be allowed to operate a time machine without completing the company's training program. The training covers machine operation, emergency procedures, and the do's and don'ts of interacting with the past or future. This not only ensures safety, but also gives the company another touch point with customers to reinforce responsible usage. In summary, marketing and sales of time travel technology require a careful balance, selling the dream of time travel while soberly addressing its risks. By crafting a narrative of wonder and safety, engaging early enthusiasts and thought leaders, and carefully selecting and preparing its first customers, the company sets the stage for time travel to be introduced to the world in a positive light. It paves the way for the next stage of the industry, making time travel accessible to clients through a dedicated service infrastructure, which we explore in the following chapter.
Chapter 5. The Time Travel Dealership Model.
As time travel technology matures and moves beyond the prototype stage, the question arises of how it will be delivered to customers. One envisioned approach is the time travel dealership model, similar in spirit to luxury car dealerships or private jet sales, but dealing in machines that traverse time. In this model, specialized dealerships serve as the interface between the time travel company and the end users, handling sales, training, maintenance, and even the unique logistics of time travel operations. This chapter examines what a time travel dealership might look like, the range of time machines offered, inventory, the customer service and experience provided, and the operational logistics required to support clients who could literally be anywhen. By drawing parallels to existing dealership and retail frameworks, we can imagine how time travel could be commercialized in a way that is both exclusive and scalable. Inventory and product range. A time travel dealership would offer an inventory of time machines and related equipment tailored to different needs and preferences. Just as an automobile dealership carries everything from sports cars to SUVs, a time travel dealership stocks models ranging from compact personal devices to large industrial platforms. Some models might be designed with a nostalgic or historical aesthetic, for example, antique-style time machines with Victorian-era or steampunk design cues to appeal to collectors or those with a romantic view of time travel. At the other end of the spectrum are futuristic, cutting-edge models built with quantum technology and minimalist design, emphasizing performance and precision over style. There are machines for different purposes. For private adventurers or families, dealerships might offer consumer-oriented time pods, relatively small, user-friendly capsules meant for short excursions. Think of these as the family car of time machines. For the ultra-wealthy, there could be luxury time vehicles, such as executive time limousines or time yachts, outfitted with comfortable interiors and advanced amenities for long sojourns in another era. Governments or corporations might be interested in specialized units, for example, military-grade temporal transporters with reinforced safety and secrecy features for sensitive missions, or industrial time freight modules for sending equipment and supplies to teams in the field. Imagine a construction crew sending tools to the year 1800 to build an installation. There may even be wearable or portable devices, such as personal time travel watches, which are not full-fledged machines, but gadgets that allow a limited form of time manipulation for an individual, perhaps short jumps or time dilation effects. Dealership inventory isn't limited to the machines themselves. They also provide recreational and educational accessories. For the adventure tourism market, one could buy a time surfing board, a recreational device for thrill seekers to ride temporal waves under controlled conditions, much as one might skydive or surf in space-time. For institutions, there might be educational simulator pods that don't actually send one through time but provide realistic training or virtual reality experiences of different eras. These simulators could be used in schools or museums as a preview or for those not ready to take a real jump. In summary, the dealership's product range is diverse, from authentic retro-looking machines to ultra-modern devices, from personal to industrial scale, and from core travel devices to supporting gadgets. This diversity ensures that every type of time traveler, the curious scholar, the luxury tourist, the corporate researcher, or the government agent, can find a product suited to their needs. It also underscores how time travel, as it commercializes, can branch out into multiple specialized market segments, much as the automobile industry did in the last century. Customer experience and services. The customer experience at a time travel dealership would need to be meticulously crafted, given the complexity and gravity of what is being sold. It's not enough to hand someone the keys, or rather coordinates, to a time machine. Extensive preparation and ongoing support are essential. Therefore, dealerships function as not just sales points, but also as training centers, support hubs, and even concierge service providers for time travelers. A prospective customer's journey might begin with an immersive introduction. Dealerships could offer virtual reality test drives of time machines, allowing clients to sample a trip to, say, ancient Rome or future Tokyo in a simulated environment before they commit to an actual purchase. This serves both to excite the customer and to acclimate them to the interface and sensation of time travel in a risk-free way. Sales staff are trained in multi-era customer service protocols, meaning they can discuss historical contexts, fashion, language tips, or etiquette for various destinations. For example, if a client expresses interest in visiting the Victorian era, the representative might also advise on appropriate clothing and social norms of 19th century England. Once someone purchases a time machine or a time travel package, they undergo a comprehensive orientation and training program. This can be thought of as ground school for time pilots. It covers machine operation, how to input coordinates, initiate returns, etc., safety protocols, what to do if you encounter a timeline anomaly or if the machine's sensors detect a paradox risk, and time travel etiquette, how to minimize impacts on the past, rules about not revealing future knowledge, etc. Dealers might conduct workshops or one-on-one coaching. Some programs could even require a solo flight in a simulator or a supervised short hop in time as a final exam before certification. Customer support for time travelers must be available 24/7 across all timelines. This means the dealership or the parent company maintains a temporal support center that can assist a traveler who might call from anywhen. Perhaps a customer in medieval Europe runs into a technical issue. They need immediate advice on troubleshooting. The support center has experts on call who understand both the technology and, if possible, the historical context. They likely use a robust communication system that works across time, either by sending signals through the temporal network or via relays left in different eras, essentially a time traveler's emergency radio network. One of the hallmark services is an emergency rescue service for stranded customers. Despite all precautions, scenarios will arise where a traveler cannot return as planned. Maybe the machine incurred damage, or the traveler got into trouble and had to abandon it. For these situations, the dealership operates a rapid response team, sometimes dubbed the Temporal Rescue Unit. This team of trained professionals, veteran time pilots, mechanics, perhaps medics and historians, can deploy on short notice with a spare machine to retrieve the customer and handle any timeline issues. Knowing that a safety net exists greatly increases customer confidence in undertaking trips. Dealerships also focus on personalized service. They might offer time travel itinerary planning services. If a client wants to witness the signing of the Magna Carta and then attend a Renaissance art workshop, the dealership staff, including historians, can create a detailed plan. What dates to go, where to safely appear, how to blend in, what local guides, if any, to arrange on site. This is akin to a high-end travel agency function. In fact, premium concierge services for VIP customers could include arranging historically authentic accommodations, security detail, perhaps a discreet guard to accompany a VIP in a dangerous era, and handling of artifacts, ensuring any item brought back is properly vetted and preserved. To build loyalty and community, dealerships might implement membership or loyalty programs, for instance, a Chrononaut Club, where repeat customers earn benefits like priority scheduling for popular time periods or exclusive events. Imagine a reunion event for time travelers to share stories held at the dealership's modern showroom. They could also encourage customers to share testimonials, subject to confidentiality rules, about their successful journeys, which helps marketing and gives new travelers confidence. Overall, the dealership's approach to customer experience is highly proactive and service-oriented. Purchasing a time machine is not a one-time transaction. It initiates a long-term relationship. From the first test simulation to the post-trip debrief, the dealership is a partner in the customer's journey through time, ensuring it is as safe, enjoyable, and fulfilling as possible. This level of service is not just about luxury, it's a necessity given the stakes of time travel. Operations and logistics. Behind the scenes, a time travel dealership, in concert with the manufacturing company, must manage extraordinarily complex operations and logistics. Delivering a time machine to a customer and supporting its use means coordinating across different locations and different eras. Traditional logistics like inventory, maintenance, and transportation take on new dimensions when time travel is involved. One fundamental aspect is maintaining secure storage facilities across multiple time periods. The dealership cannot simply keep all its stock in the present and assume immediate delivery to a past date the moment a machine leaves for 1880. From the perspective of 1880, it must have arrived there. So the company might establish discrete storage or staging areas in various key time periods. For example, they could have a hidden warehouse in the late 19th century stocked with a couple of time machines or spare parts ready to serve customers traveling to that era. These facilities would be highly secure, perhaps guarded and camouflaged to avoid historical detection, and possibly staffed by personnel who periodically time shift to rotate in and out. Linked to storage is an efficient delivery system spanning different eras. If a client in the present buys a time machine and wants to start their journey in ancient Rome, the dealership might actually send the machine to the Roman Republic period ahead of the client's arrival, so it's waiting for them, or accompany the client there with the machine. Delivery could involve scheduling windows when sending a new machine into a past era will not cause unwanted disruptions. The company might even utilize temporal shipping partnerships, specialized services that transport goods through time on contract. Shipping a time machine through time is itself done via time machine, so the logistics chain might involve leapfrogging machines ferrying goods. Maintenance and repair are critical and complicated. The dealership sets up a network of maintenance teams or depots in various timelines to fix machines that are out in the field. Suppose a traveler in the Jurassic period encounters a technical glitch. Rather than requiring them to return to the present for repairs, a field technician team might jump to the Jurassic with tools and parts to service the machine on site, on time. This requires technicians to be not only skilled engineers, but also prepared to operate in whatever historical or even prehistorical environment the machine is located. Logistics here involve keeping inventories of spare parts across time, or the ability to dispatch parts quickly to where they're needed. Managing inventory across temporal dimensions is a new kind of logistical puzzle. The dealership must always know when each item is. Traditional inventory systems track quantity and location. A temporal inventory system must track timeline status. For example, if 5 machines were produced in the present year, but 2 have been sent to the year 1900 and remain there in use, the present-day inventory shows 3, but from a multi-time perspective, those other 2 are still company assets deployed in the field. Advanced tracking software, possibly leveraging blockchain-like time-stamped records for authenticity, could be developed to follow each machine's temporal journey. The system might flag paradox risks as well, e.g., machine number 5 is scheduled to be in 2025 and also 1995 at overlapping intervals. Check for consistency. Scheduling is another challenge. Machine availability scheduling must account for the fact that a single machine could theoretically serve multiple trips that do not overlap in its own timeline. For instance, a machine could take a client to the year 1800 for a week, return to present, and then be immediately sent with another client to 1500 for another week. From the machine's perspective, these are sequential, even if from a calendar view it appeared in 2 different past periods back to back. Software that handles these possibilities ensures that the machine isn't double booked in a physically impossible way. Similarly, staff scheduling gets very tricky when employees might be traveling in time as part of their job, e.g., a support technician who spends what is a week in the past with a customer might return 5 minutes after they left from the present perspective. Employers must track actual hours worked by staff, even if their return time is almost immediate. and also monitor for potential health effects of frequent time travel on employees. Financial transactions have to be managed in a multi-era context too. The dealership implements secure payment processing across different currencies and eras. A customer might pay in present-day currency, but what about costs incurred in the past? There might be a need for conversion rates for historical money, or a system where customers carry a sort of temporal credit that can be settled later. Modern banking likely doesn't extend to medieval times, so the company might literally stockpile gold, silver, or other trade goods in certain eras to facilitate operations there, and then reconcile the expenses later. Finally, a robust communication network across timelines is established for operational coordination and emergency communication. This might involve devices left in various eras that can send quantum encrypted messages to the future and back, effectively a private temporal internet for company use. Through this network, a time-traveling customer or employee can always reach the dealership support center, and the company can coordinate rescues, deliveries, or schedule changes in real time or real time relative to whoever is calling. In conclusion, the logistics of a time travel dealership are extraordinarily complex, combining elements of supply chain management, IT, and contingency planning on a whole new level. The company must track assets and people across time, ensure everything and everyone is where and when they are supposed to be, and be ready to solve problems that can literally arise in another century. This operational backbone is what makes the glamorous customer-facing side of time travel possible, and it would likely drive the development of entirely new fields of study in business and technology, temporal operations management. Anyone with a well-oiled logistical machine, a time travel dealership can confidently offer its customers the promise, wherever and whenever you want to go, we'll make it happen. Chapter 6, Legal, Regulatory, and Insurance Frameworks. The emergence of practical time travel forces society to confront an unprecedented array of legal and regulatory challenges. Existing laws were written for a world where time flows in one direction. Introducing the capability to visit the past or future upends basic assumptions underlying legal systems, jurisdiction, and liability. In parallel, the risks associated with time travel demand new forms of insurance and liability management. This chapter explores how lawmakers, regulators, and insurers might respond to time travel technology. We look at the need for new temporal laws and international agreements, how a time travel company navigates licensing and compliance, and what kind of insurance products and liability rules arise to cope with paradoxes and other unique perils of time manipulation. Temporal laws and regulations. The instant a time machine becomes reality, governments around the world will realize that entirely new temporal regulations are required. One fundamental legal challenge is jurisdiction. Laws are traditionally tied to geography in the present time, but what law applies if someone commits an act in the past? And who has authority over time travel activities? Is it the country where the machine is built, the country where the traveler resides, or the country corresponding to the destination, time, and place? A time travel company must work proactively to engage with lawmakers and help shape sensible legislation. Early on, companies would seek to secure proper licensing across all relevant time periods and jurisdictions for their operations. This might sound almost impossible, but it reflects steps like getting permission from present-day authorities to operate time travel devices, and perhaps internationally coordinated permission for specific historical sites. For instance, an agreement that we won't send travelers to Nation X's territory in the past without consent. In a sense, time travel might be treated akin to a combination of aviation and nuclear technology, requiring special government licenses, oversight, and strict operational protocols for safety. Because time travel can affect the interests of all humanity, a reckless act in 1800 could, in theory, alter the entire world line. There will likely be efforts to establish a global framework or treaty on time travel. International bodies, perhaps a UN-like temporal commission, may set baseline rules, e.g., prohibiting travel to certain sensitive times, such as periods of degrees Celsius, ongoing war, to avoid exploitation, or agreeing on shared principles like no interfering with the established historical record, though enforcement is tricky. The company would collaborate with these agencies to ensure its operations align with emerging global standards, not only to be responsible, but also to avoid getting shut down by a coalition of governments. Another legal innovation needed is the concept of cross-temporal law enforcement and dispute resolution. The company might help establish or liaise with temporal regulatory authorities, perhaps new agencies empowered to monitor time travel activity. For example, if a traveler does cause a significant alteration to the timeline, a temporal authority might step in to investigate or even attempt to reverse the damage. The company might agree to certain controls, such as reporting all trips taken, so regulators can track potential timeline changes. Similarly, if disputes arise, say a customer breaks the use policy and causes harm, there needs to be a system, maybe a special temporal court or arbitration panel, to adjudicate issues that span different times. The company could push for treaties that clarify that legal actions can be taken in the present for things done in the past, so someone can be tried under present-day law for a crime committed via time travel. A specific legal hurdle is the enforceability of contracts and rights across time. The company will have to craft a legal framework for cross-temporal contracts. For instance, if a client signs a contract in 2025 agreeing not to do certain things in the past, and then they break that contract in the year 1800, what is the remedy? The contract might include clauses specifying that the law of 2025 applies and that the traveler consents to jurisdiction in their home time. Intellectual property is another headache. If a traveler brings a technology design from the future to the present, who owns that IP? Laws may be needed to address temporal imports-exports of information. Overall, the regulatory environment will evolve rapidly as governments catch up with the technology. A time travel company will likely need a legal department as pioneering as its engineering team, working with governments, participating in international forums, and possibly even helping draft the very laws that will govern its operations. This cooperative stance is in the company's interest. Clear laws and treaties can actually protect the company as well by creating a stable environment in which to do business and reassuring the public that time travel is under control of law rather than a wild free-for-all. Liability and insurance. Time travel introduces unprecedented risks, so new approaches to liability and insurance are essential. Consider the possibility of a traveler accidentally causing a change in history. The damages could be literally incalculable, raising the question, who is liable for timeline alterations? From day one, a time travel company will need to work with insurers to devise comprehensive insurance policies covering paradox and timeline-related liabilities. This might result in entirely new insurance products such as paradox liability insurance, which covers financial losses due to alterations in historical events. For example, if a company's actions in the past inadvertently erase a person from existence, a morbid scenario, an insurance policy might specify a payout to that person's descendants or other affected parties, though how to determine that is a philosophical and actuarial nightmare. The company will also craft robust liability waivers and user agreements for its customers. Before any travel, customers must acknowledge the risks. They could be injured or lost in another time. They could inadvertently alter something, etc. These waivers would likely include clauses indemnifying the company if the customer violates protocols. For instance, if a traveler deliberately tries to change a major event against all advice and causes havoc, the company is not to be held fully responsible. That said, regulators may not allow a company to fully contract out of liability for timeline damage. The public interest might dictate that companies remain responsible for certain outcomes no matter what. To navigate liability, the company's legal team will define clear responsibilities for itself and users in various scenarios. For instance, the company might accept liability for technical malfunctions if the machine fails and causes harm, but not for misuse by the user. Users might be held liable if they break the rules, e.g., theft of artifacts from the past, or revealing future knowledge that causes economic disruption. These expectations could be part of the law or of the customer contract. Insurance companies, in partnership with time travel firms, will likely create specialized coverage products. One such product could be time travel medical insurance, covering health issues that arise from temporal journeys, which might not be covered by regular health insurance. Another might be historical bond insurance. If a client is going to, say, invest money in the past with the plan to profit, a questionable but conceivable scheme, an insurer could underwrite the risk of unintended consequences of that investment. We already mentioned paradox insurance for large-scale effects. Insurers will also insure the company itself, corporate liability, and require rigorous compliance with safety protocols as a condition. The concept of an emergency fund for temporal crises may be formalized. The company could set aside reserves or an insurance-backed pool of funds that can be used for mitigation or compensation in the event of a timeline accident. For example, if a time traveler's actions cause a known historical site to be destroyed earlier than it should have been, the company might use the emergency fund to finance historical preservation efforts elsewhere as a form of restitution. One particularly tricky aspect is proving causation and quantifying damages for insurance claims. If someone claims that due to a time travel incident they lost their job because history changed and their company never existed, how is that claim evaluated? Insurance adjusters might need input from temporal analysts and historians to reconstruct what the timeline should have been. This suggests a close relationship between the time travel company, insurers, and perhaps governmental oversight bodies to handle claims in a fair way. Finally, partnerships with insurance companies will be key. A time travel firm might partner with a major insurer to jointly develop these products, making it easier for customers to get coverage. For example, a travel insurance bundle for time travelers included with the ticket price. Knowing that there's an insurance safety net makes customers and investors more comfortable with the whole venture. In summary, the liability and insurance framework for time travel requires as much innovation as the technology itself. It's about anticipating what can go wrong, assigning responsibility in a way that's equitable and incentivizes caution, and creating financial mechanisms to deal with the fallout if something does go wrong. This infrastructure not only protects the company, but also helps protect customers and the public from the potentially high stakes of temporal misadventures. Compliance and oversight. Given the profound power of time travel and its potential to affect society, robust compliance and oversight mechanisms are crucial. Time travel companies will likely need to adhere to stringent regulations and possibly be subject to continuous monitoring. Internally, a responsible company will establish its own governance structures, and externally, independent bodies may be set up to keep watch over temporal activities. One of the first steps for a company is to institute an internal temporal ethics and compliance board. This board, which might include not just company executives, but external ethicists and advisors, reviews the company's practices, R&D, and proposed uses of the technology. Its mandate is to ensure that decisions are ethically sound and in line with both legal requirements and the company's public commitments. For example, if the marketing department comes up with an idea to offer customers the chance to, say, hunt extinct animals in the past as a luxury experience, the ethics board would likely veto it as irresponsible due to ecological and moral concerns. The company will also develop strict user guidelines and a temporal use policy that every customer must agree to. These guidelines cover what is considered acceptable behavior during time travel. They might forbid certain high-risk actions, such as attempting to intervene in major historical events or profiting from foreknowledge of the future, e.g., no betting on past sporting events beyond a certain limit. Customers might have to sign something akin to a chrononaut oath, pledging they will not intentionally disrupt the timeline. These policies are not just on paper. The company could enforce them through technical means, like programming the time machines to prevent trips to particularly sensitive moments or locations without special clearance. The technology itself aids compliance. As mentioned, time machines can be built with paradox prevention systems and timeline monitoring features. These can act as automated compliance safeguards. For instance, if a traveler tries to travel to an extremely high-risk event, like to the site of a known disaster with intent to avert it, the machine's AI might require an override code or simply refuse, logging the attempt for review by the company's compliance team. Machines might also keep detailed logs of each trip, time, location, activities recorded via sensors that the company reviews to ensure no rules were broken. Privacy concerns will arise, but given the stakes, such monitoring may be justified and agreed upon in user contracts. Externally, governments or international bodies may require independent audits or oversight of the company's time travel operations. Just as nuclear facilities have inspectors, a time travel company might receive periodic visits from a temporal regulatory authority's inspectors who review logs, inspect safety mechanisms, and certify that the company is following all protocols. The company might need to obtain a license renewal every year, demonstrating its compliance record, e.g., no major incidents, all customer travels went through approval processes, all incidents properly reported. We might also see the creation of a temporal law enforcement unit or partnership with existing law enforcement. For example, if malicious use of time travel is suspected, say an unauthorized time machine is used or someone tries to smuggle contraband through time, the company would coordinate with authorities, perhaps providing expertise or even equipment to address the threat. The company, not wanting rogue actors to ruin the reputation of the technology, would support cracking down on black market time travel or off-book operations. An intriguing aspect of oversight is real-time monitoring. In critical cases, regulators might insist on the ability to track where, when each licensed time machine is at any given moment. Maybe not precisely what it's doing, but at least the fact that machine X is currently in year Y, location Z. This could be done via some beacon or coding that all legal time machines must have, similar to how airplanes have transponders. If a machine deviates or disappears, alerts can be raised. Such tracking data would be sensitive, so it'd likely be handled by a secure oversight body or encrypted in a way only to be used if needed. Overall, compliance and oversight ensure that as time travel technology is unleashed, it doesn't spiral out of control. The company takes responsibility by policing itself and its users, and society, through its regulators and laws, keeps an eye on the company. The goal is to build public trust. People need to believe that someone is watching the watchers, so to speak, and that this powerful technology isn't going to be misused. If the time travel industry demonstrates strong compliance and welcomes oversight, it stands a much better chance of being accepted and allowed to grow.
Chapter 7: Ethical and Philosophical Dimensions.
The power to travel through time is not just an engineering or commercial challenge, it is fundamentally an ethical and philosophical one. Time travel forces us to confront deep questions about right and wrong, about the nature of causality and free will, and even about the meaning of human history. This chapter delves into these less tangible but profoundly important aspects. We will consider the ethical dilemmas of whether one should interfere in past events, the paradoxes that challenge our understanding of cause and effect, and the grand philosophical questions that time travel allows us to explore, or perhaps complicate further. While earlier chapters touched on rules and policies to manage ethical issues, here we examine the underlying reasoning and debates that inform those rules. Ultimately, how we choose to use time travel technology may say as much about our values as it does about our ingenuity. The dilemma of intervention and paradox. One of the thorniest ethical questions in time travel is the problem of intervention. If you have the power to change something in the past for the better, should you do it, or is it too dangerous to tamper with the timeline? Many time travelers will feel the temptation to intervene in historical events, especially to prevent or mitigate tragedies. How could one watch the outbreak of a devastating epidemic in the past and not try to deliver a modern cure, or witness injustice and not try to avert it? We can imagine scenarios like a traveler going back to 1930s Germany and debating whether to do something about the rise of Nazism, or a traveler in a past pandemic secretly introducing antibiotics to save lives. The moral pull to save lives or stop great evils is powerful and, in an abstract sense, commendable. However, against this stands the risk of paradox and unintended consequences. The classic example often cited is the grandfather paradox. A time traveler goes back and accidentally or intentionally causes the death of their own grandfather before the parent's conception, thereby preventing the traveler's own existence. This is a logical paradox with no resolution in a single timeline. It illustrates that some changes could create contradictions in reality. Even outside of such extreme cases, any change, even done for good, can have a ripple effect. Killing or stopping a tyrant early might save millions, or it might lead to someone even worse taking power or alter the conditions such that a different catastrophe occurs. This is often referred to as the law of unintended consequences. A small change, like saving a lost work of art from destruction, might alter cultural history in unpredictable ways, perhaps inspiring someone to do something terrible, or depriving someone of a motivating event. Ethically, this becomes a clash between utilitarian intentions, trying to maximize well-being by improving the past, and deontological caution, following a rule that one must not alter history. Many argue that because we cannot fully predict the outcome of a major historical intervention, and because of the possibility of paradoxes, the ethical stance should be one of extreme caution or non-interference. This stance is reflected in the policies companies impose, essentially adopting a temporal version of the Hippocratic Oath, first, do no harm, to the timeline. On the other hand, some ethicists might argue there is a moral duty to intervene in certain clear-cut cases, a view sometimes called temporal utilitarianism. For example, if a time traveler could painlessly prevent a large-scale atrocity and then immediately leave, minimizing further influence, is it not unethical not to do so? The counter-argument usually is, we can never be sure that action won't lead to an even worse reality or unravel the world as we know it. To navigate this, time travel companies and governing bodies lean on a principle similar to the precautionary principle in environmental ethics. Because the risks of grave harm are so high, one should refrain from intervention unless one is very certain of the outcome, and perhaps even then refrain. In practice, as discussed, companies put strict rules and even technological locks against intervention beyond observation. Travelers are typically limited to being observers, not active participants, especially regarding historically pivotal events. The paradox problem also raises philosophical questions about determinism and free will. If something a traveler does seems to change the past, one has to ask, was the timeline supposed to be that way all along, meaning the traveler's action was part of history anyway, which is one resolution to paradoxes, or did the traveler create a branching alternate timeline? Some interpretations, such as the many worlds theory, suggest that any change simply creates a new parallel timeline, leaving the original intact. If that's the case, one could argue an intervention doesn't destroy your timeline, it just spawns a new reality. Is that ethically more permissible? Possibly, but then there is the ethical issue of stranding people or creating worlds that diverge. Because of all these complexities, the ethics of time travel intervention remains a hotly debated topic. In policy terms, most lean towards a conservative approach. Do not intervene unless authorized in extraordinary circumstances. Perhaps an oversight board could approve a carefully controlled intervention if it was deemed overwhelmingly beneficial and low risk. Travelers are inculcated with this ethic as part of their training. They are, in effect, asked to overcome the natural human impulse to save the day and instead serve as witnesses who learn and report but do not alter. It is a heavy burden. Some have likened it to the prime directive in science fiction, a rule of non-interference that explorers must live by for the greater good. Philosophical questions at the temporal frontier. Time travel doesn't just raise ethical dilemmas, it also opens or reopens profound philosophical inquiries. By allowing us to experience time in nonlinear ways, it provides a new lens on questions that have been pondered by philosophers for ages. Questions about time, existence, consciousness, and the universe. One set of questions revolves around the nature of time and existence itself. If a traveler can go back to witness the origin of life on Earth, or even the Big Bang, what insight might that give into why we are here? Some adventurous philosophers or scientists might travel to observe the moment life first emerged, abiogenesis. Seeing life's humble beginnings could influence debates on whether life is a cosmic accident or an inevitable outcome of chemistry. Others might want to witness the universe's birth or its far future death, the heat death of the universe, to directly confront the question of how time and the cosmos began and how they will end. If someone actually experienced these events from a safe vantage, it might confirm or challenge current cosmological theories and raise new metaphysical discussions about creation and destruction. Time travel also provides a unique way to probe the nature of consciousness and free will. For example, a traveler could observe people at critical decision points in history, say stand in the room with the mathematician Fermat as he's scribbling his famous last theorem, or watch Martin Luther King Jr. as he decides to go to Memphis. Observing these moments might shed light on how inspiration and decision-making work. Are great ideas and choices products of individual genius or the context of their time? Furthermore, there's the famous question, if you change something minor, does the course of history change, or do things find a way to self-correct, sometimes called chronodynamic inertia? That is almost an experiment in free will versus determinism. Perhaps some travelers try small interventions with permission in controlled experiments to see if outcomes can indeed be altered, or if the timeline pushes back. Another philosophical avenue is exploring alternate histories and the concept of possible worlds. Time travel might allow for experiments in what if, while ethically actualizing an alternate timeline might be problematic, since that creates a whole new reality with potentially unintended consequences. In theory, one could travel to a branching point and let a scenario play out differently just to observe it if it doesn't affect one's own timeline. For instance, some might try to explore a world where a major war had a different outcome just to see how history might have gone. This touches on the many worlds interpretation and raises existential questions. If multiple timelines exist, what does that mean for identity and reality? Are all those alternates as real as our own? The meaning of time itself becomes a lived question. Philosophers have long debated whether time is absolute or just a measure of change, whether the past and future are as real as the present. The block universe theory in physics suggests they are. A time traveler literally moving through past, present, future complicates tensed concepts of time. Some travelers might come to feel that all moments exist simultaneously and that our consciousness just moves through them, a perspective that can be both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Time travel also intensifies the discussion around causality, the phenomenon of a cause coming after its effect, like receiving information from the future that enables something in the past, forces consideration of causal loops and whether cause and effect are fundamental or emergent properties. If a traveler gives a famous scientist from the past an idea that they are historically credited with, who is the true cause of the idea? These bootstrap paradoxes challenge our notions of originality and responsibility. Finally, there are humanistic and societal philosophical questions. If time travel becomes commonplace, how might it change humanity's view of itself? Will we become apathetic, thinking everything is predetermined or can be fixed by going back? Or will it make us more mindful that our actions reverberate through time? There is a potential for temporal humility, the recognition that we are part of a vast tapestry of time, and perhaps the past and future have a kind of parity with the present that demands respect. In essence, time travel turns theoretical philosophy into something experimental and experiential. Age-old questions can be approached in new ways. Each journey is not just a physical adventure, but a philosophical exploration as well, Travelers often return not only with data or stories, but with a changed perspective on life and reality. Grappling with these questions is crucial because it helps ensure that as we develop the power of time travel, we also deepen our wisdom to use it in a way that enriches rather than impoverishes our understanding of the world. Chapter 8: Vision for Long-Term Growth, Societal Integration, and Responsible Stewardship. As time travel technology progresses from a novel innovation to a mature facet of human capability, it is vital to consider the long-term vision for how it will grow, how it will fit into society, and how it will be guided responsibly. In this final chapter, we look ahead to what the time travel industry and the world around it might look like decades into the future. How will the technology improve and expand? In what ways will time travel become integrated into everyday life or global civilization? And most importantly, how do we ensure that this technology is used wisely, ethically, and for the benefit of humanity? The answers to these questions will shape the legacy of time travel for generations to come. Continued innovation and global expansion. The journey of time travel technology doesn't end with the first commercial devices. In many ways, that will be just the beginning. Companies in this space will invest in next-generation R&D to continuously improve the capabilities of time machines. One anticipated avenue of improvement is extending the temporal range of travel. Early models might be limited in how far back or forward they can safely go, perhaps due to energy requirements or calibration limits. Future R&D could push those boundaries, enabling travel to the very distant past or future. Engineers will also work on increasing the capacity of time machines, moving from one-person or small pod devices to larger vehicles that could transport groups of people or significant cargo. Just as computing technology tended to become faster and hold more memory over time, we can expect time travel devices to become more powerful, more efficient in energy use, and possibly smaller or more portable as well. Innovation will likely spawn complementary technologies and spin-offs. For instance, a time viewer device might be developed, something that allows people to observe the past without physically traveling there by receiving light energy signals from another time. This could be used for historical research or even personal nostalgia. Imagine watching your own past memories unfold. Another spin-off could be a temporal communication system, the ability to send messages through time in a controlled way. This might revolutionize communications, though it raises its own paradox issues to manage. A more near-term idea is applying some principles of time manipulation in other fields. Maybe temporal tech can lead to improved GPS systems with relativistic corrections or ultra-precise time synchronization methods for computing networks using insights gained. By diversifying beyond just the core travel device, companies ensure that even if direct time travel has a narrow user base, there are spin-off products that benefit broader markets. The time travel industry, if successful, will scale globally. What starts perhaps in one country, likely where it was invented or first funded, will spread to multiple regions. Companies will open manufacturing plants and training centers in different continents, both to tap into local expertise and to be closer to emerging customer bases. Each region might have its own regulatory environment. Asia, Europe, the Americas, etc., could each have different rules or cultural attitudes about time travel. Part of expansion is learning to navigate local laws, which might involve, for example, some countries banning travel to certain sensitive historical periods of their nation. It also means tailoring approaches to each market. Some cultures might emphasize educational uses, others might lean into tourism, and so on. Global scaling also involves infrastructure build-out. Just as commercial air travel required a network of airports, commercial time travel might lead to the creation of temporal hubs, perhaps special facilities that serve as safe nodes to arrive in or depart from across different eras. These could be akin to embassies in time, secure locations maintained in various historical periods for travelers to gather and transit, possibly maintained by a consortium of companies or international agencies. From a business perspective, companies will aim to create recurring revenue streams to sustain long-term growth. Apart from selling machines, they might offer ongoing services. For example, time travel expeditions as packages, like a guided tour of a historical event, which could be sold repeatedly with different guides and clients each time. Maintenance and support contracts for time machine owners will provide steady income, as will training certification programs. New users will constantly need training. We could even see timeshare arrangements, not timeshares in the vacation sense, but fractional ownership or rental models where people pay for a certain number of time travel hours per year. By diversifying offerings, experiences, rentals, merchandise, etc., the industry builds a robust economic foundation. Investing in the next generation of talent is another key aspect of sustainable growth. The field of temporal science and engineering will need a steady flow of skilled experts. Companies, perhaps in partnership with governments or universities, might establish scholarships, internships, and special programs to encourage students to go into this field. In the mid-21st century, we might see the first degree programs in chronoengineering or temporal studies. Just as the space industry inspired generations to study aerospace engineering, time travel can inspire new academic disciplines. By supporting education, companies ensure they have the human capital needed to drive innovation further 10, 20, 50 years down the line. Finally, the leaders in the field will likely take on roles as thought leaders and conveners to shape the industry's evolution responsibly. We can imagine annual conferences, perhaps Time Tech Summit, where scientists, ethicists, business leaders, and regulators gather to share advances and debate policies. Companies might publish transparency reports about their time travel activities and their impacts to keep public trust. By actively engaging the public and global institutions, the industry can evolve in a way that stays aligned with humanity's values and needs. Societal integration of time travel. In the long run, time travel could move from being a niche enterprise to an integrated part of society, albeit likely one that remains more regulated and specialized than, say, smartphones. How might everyday life change when time travel is a known possibility? One significant aspect is educational and cultural integration. Time travel offers such a powerful tool for learning that it could transform education. Schools might incorporate time travel experiences into their curricula, at least virtually. We might see partnerships where museums and educational institutions arrange controlled time travel trips for study, e.g., a select group of history students visiting a historical site during its heyday as a capstone project under supervision. Even those who never travel could benefit from the influx of new knowledge. Historians will have first-hand accounts of eras previously shrouded in mystery. Archaeologists might have direct observations to supplement digs, etc. Our understanding of history, science, like evolution or astronomy, and culture could deepen dramatically. Societal integration also means making time travel more accessible and inclusive over time. Initially, it will be expensive and exclusive, but as the technology matures, there may be pushes, maybe even government subsidies or nonprofit initiatives to democratize access. For instance, there could be programs to ensure that not only the wealthy benefit, perhaps grants that fund time travel for important research or for students from underprivileged backgrounds to have once-in-a-lifetime educational journeys. Accessibility in the disability sense will be considered too. Time machines and experiences can be designed to accommodate travelers with disabilities. For example, ensuring that a person in a wheelchair can safely travel and navigate certain historical environments, or providing specialized support personnel. In a long-term vision of egalitarian access, some even imagine community time centers like public libraries where people might check out a time travel experience, though that might remain far-fetched given the risks. The industry will also be expected to adhere to sustainability and environmental considerations during integration. Time travel should not negatively impact the environment of either the present or the past. Responsible practices might include not introducing invasive species or diseases across time, not exploiting past resources. One could, for instance, be tempted to harvest resources from the past, but that could deplete them before their time. Companies will adopt green time travel practices, powering machines with clean energy, and ensuring any interaction with ecosystems in other eras is minimized or mitigated. Indeed, time travel might even help environmental efforts. For example, studying past climates to improve future sustainability models, or carefully relocating at-risk species in time. Some have theorized about taking endangered species to the past or future to thrive, though that meddles with ecosystems and is very controversial. On a cultural level, once the novelty settles, society will develop norms and etiquette around time travel. Perhaps there will be social stigma against those who misuse it, like if someone goes to the future just to win lotteries, they might be looked down upon as cheating. New art forms or sports could emerge, maybe time photography competitions for best photograph taken in another era, or temporal scavenger hunts. We might see time travel story-sharing events, much like travelogues or slideshows from travelers of today, which enrich culture. Legal and economic integration will also progress. Laws will adapt to handle routine time travel issues. For example, employment law might cover time travel-related absences. If you spend 1 week in the past on personal travel, did a week pass for your job's leave calculation or not? Insurance policies might include optional time travel coverage as a standard add-on. Economically, new industries sprout. Timeline consulting, experts who advise governments or firms on temporal matters, temporal tourism agencies specialized in certain eras, even insurance for historical artifacts in case they disappear due to timeline changes. However, with integration comes the risk of normalization to a degree that people become complacent. As more individuals get to travel in time and see things firsthand, society must ensure it preserves the lessons of history rather than trivializing them. There's a possibility that if someone can always go back and see, say, the horrors of a war, they might not feel the urgency to prevent future ones. We can always go back and fix it fallacy. So integration must be accompanied by strong education in temporal ethics for the public. A positive vision is that time travel, rather than causing chaos, actually increases global and temporal consciousness. People may develop a stronger sense of connection to humanity across time, feeling kinship not just with those alive today, but with ancestors and future descendants. This could foster a longer-term thinking in politics and society, knowing that future generations aren't just abstract, but could potentially interact. We might see the establishment of something like a temporal heritage foundation that works to preserve important sites and moments in history, possibly supported by time travel companies as part of their corporate social responsibility. This would be an example of using the technology to give back, e.g., quietly ensuring certain libraries in the past aren't lost, or recording oral histories from cultures that left no written records. In summary, societal integration means time travel moves from a fantastical anomaly to a managed, understood part of human life, touching education, culture, economy, and global awareness. It's integrated not in the sense that everyone does it. Likely it remains less common than air travel, for example, but in the sense that its existence is accounted for in our institutions and way of life. The better this integration is planned and guided, the more society can benefit from time travel's wonders while minimizing disruptions. Responsible stewardship of temporal technology. Perhaps the most critical aspect of the long-term vision is how we exercise stewardship over time travel technology and the timeline itself. With great power comes great responsibility, and time travel is arguably the greatest power humanity has ever wielded. Ensuring it is used wisely and ethically is an ongoing process that extends far beyond the first wave of regulations and company policies. It requires a sustained commitment to responsibility by all stakeholders, companies, governments, international bodies, and the community of time travelers. At the industry level, companies must continue to champion and adhere to the highest standards of ethics and self-regulation. This means regularly updating safety protocols and ethical guidelines as we learn more. For example, if through experience we find that even minor interventions can have cumulative effects, guidelines might tighten further. On the flip side, if some interventions are found to be benign or even beneficial, with international sanction, guidelines could evolve to allow those in a controlled manner. The key is that the industry doesn't become complacent or purely profit-driven. It must see itself as the guardian of the timeline in many respects. In practice, responsible stewardship could involve things like an industry-wide agreement, a kind of temporal Geneva Convention on certain red lines, e.g., no time travel for military aggression, no exploiting the past for resources, collective action to prevent unlicensed time travel operations that could cause havoc. International governance will likely also evolve. We might see the strengthening of a global temporal authority or coalition empowered by treaty to oversee time travel activities worldwide, somewhat analogous to the International Atomic Energy Agency, which oversees nuclear materials. This body could facilitate sharing of information about risks or incidents and coordinate responses. If a rogue actor tried to alter history significantly, this global body, with cooperation from major powers and companies, would respond, perhaps even by sending a counter team to restore things. Having such arrangements formalized ensures that no single nation or corporation is solely in charge of something that affects all of humanity. Transparency and public engagement are pillars of responsible stewardship. Over time, the public will demand to know what is being done with time travel. Companies and governments will likely publish periodic timeline integrity reports, essentially summaries of time travel missions and an assessment that history remains on its expected course to the extent we can know. While some details might be classified, a spirit of openness helps prevent mistrust or conspiracy theories that could otherwise flourish. People might blame time travelers for anything bad that happens. Perhaps a traveler changed it. Another aspect is a dedication to correcting mistakes. No system is foolproof. Despite all precautions, it's possible that at some point an ill-advised travel or accident causes a noticeable negative change. Responsible stewardship would mean acknowledging it and working collectively to fix it if possible. For instance, mounting a carefully planned mission to reverse the undesired change with oversight and international approval. This willingness to course correct, even if costly, underscores that preserving the timeline's integrity is more important than saving face or money. Stewardship also extends to how the fruits of time travel are used. When new historical knowledge or artifacts are brought back, they should be shared and preserved for the public good. Time travelers might collect items thought lost, like works from the Library of Alexandria, rather than these disappearing into private collections. Responsible practice would have them entrusted to museums or educational institutions, with some mechanism to note they were retrieved via time travel, raising its own interesting curatorial notes. Looking far ahead, one can imagine a future where humanity sees itself as the steward not just of Earth's space, but of its timeline. This could involve a sense of duty to protect the past, treating it almost like an endangered habitat that must not be polluted or irreversibly changed. Responsible time travelers might perform acts of preservation, for example, quietly preventing certain priceless artifacts from being destroyed when such preservation doesn't alter broader history, like saving specimens of extinct plants or animals without influencing human events. However, these acts would be carefully governed by agreed rules to avoid sliding down the slope of playing God with history. In the end, responsible stewardship is about wisdom, foresight, and humility. We must approach time travel with the humility that despite our advanced technology, we don't fully understand the web of causation that underpins history. Therefore, we use foresight to anticipate consequences as best as possible, and wisdom to refrain from actions that promise short-term gain but carry long-term risks. By fostering a culture of responsibility around time travel in companies, among travelers, and in the international community, we maximize the chances that this technology will be a boon to humanity and not a bane. As we conclude this book, it's clear that time travel holds extraordinary promise, the chance to learn from the past directly, to inspire the future, and to perhaps unite humanity around a longer-term perspective. But it also poses extraordinary challenges, technical, yes, but even more so ethical and societal. Meeting those challenges requires that we grow in moral insight alongside our growth in scientific capability. The story of time travel will continue to unfold over the coming years and decades, and it will be up to all of us, engineers, lawmakers, travelers, and citizens, to ensure that it's a story we're proud to tell to future generations. After all, those future generations may be watching or even visiting. The responsibility we hold is literally to the future and the past at once. By embracing that responsibility with care and vision, we can truly become wise stewards of the timeline, keeping the wondrous gift of time travel safe and beneficial for all.